For most of us, tourism is about escaping the everyday. It's a chance to see new sights, experience a different culture, and maybe find a new perspective on the world. It's a search for leisure, for discovery, for life. But what if, for a select few, the ultimate tourist experience wasn't about witnessing life, but about taking it? What if, in the middle of a modern European war, there were people who didn't come to help but to hunt? For decades, these were just whispers, a dark legend born from the longest siege in modern history. But now, those whispers are turning into shouts, and what was once dismissed as a horrifying rumor is now being treated as a cold, hard case. This is the story of the Sarajevo Safari and the hunt for the tourist who allegedly paid to kill.
Blood on the grass won't wash away. Undetected footprints hidden in the mud.
Our story begins in April 1992. The city of Sarajevo, the capital of a newly independent Bosnia and Herzegovina, is completely surrounded. Tucked into a valley, the city became a natural box for the Bosnia Serb army positioned on the hills above. For the next 1,425 days, its citizens would live through a nightmare. Food, water, and electricity were cut off. But the most personal form of terror came from the sharp cracks of a single rifle shot. Many streets became known as Sniper Alley. Hand-painted signs with the words, "Beware, Sniper," popped up across the city, a desperate warning against an enemy you couldn't see. The International Criminal Tribunal for the former Yugoslavia would later convict Serb leaders for a deliberate campaign of sniping and shelling meant to spread terror. Over the course of the siege, more than 11,000 civilians were killed, many picked off at random, as they tried to survive. They were shot fetching water, riding trams, or just walking down the street. Mothers and their children were killed together. It was a relentless war against a trapped population. But for years, survivors have spoken of something even more sinister. They talked about weekend warriors. When the sniper fire would mysteriously get worse, they wished about seeing foreigners who weren't soldiers in the sniper nest. The rumor was so monstrous, so far beyond the normal horrors of war, that it was easy to dismiss as folklore. The allegation that wealthy people from Italy, Canada, the United States, Russia, and beyond were paying for the privilege of shooting at the men, women, and children of Sarajevo. They weren't soldiers, they were tourists on a human safari. For an accusation. This serious rumors aren't enough. You need evidence, and the first pieces came from the people who were there. For years, their accounts were scattered, but they told a chillingly consistent story. One of the key testimonies came from John Jordan, a former U.S. Marine who was in Sarajevo volunteering as a firefighter. In 2007, testimony before the War Crimes Tribunal, he described seeing individuals he believed were tourist snipers. He stated under oath that on several occasions he saw people who didn't appear to be locals, based on their clothes, their weapons, and the way they were escorted by high-ranking officers. Then, there's the testimony from the other side. An anonymous former Serbian army contractor came forward. His identity hidden to protect his life, he claimed his job was to escort these tourists to their shooting positions. He said he watched through binoculars as they shot at civilians, describing an adrenaline-fueled scene where the tourists would cheer when they hit their targets. Survivors on the ground felt the strangeness of it all. Fatima Papovac, whose 6-year-old son, Adnan, was killed by a sniper, spoke for countless mothers who she asked, "How could someone kill a child for amusement?" That question has haunted Sarajevo for decades. Was this just the senseless cruelty of war? Or was there something more organized, more transactional, and infinitely more twisted going on? For nearly 30 years, the story of this paid killer stayed in the shadows. It was a horrifying footnote from known to survivors and some journalists, but never proven. That all changed. In 2022, The case was blown wide open by a Slovenian documentary film called Sarajevo Safari. The film didn't just repeat old rumors, it laid them out as a sophisticated secret operation. According to the film's anonymous sources, the system was shockingly organized. Tourists would fly into Belgrade, which still had a working airport. From there, they would take in by road or helicopter to the hills around Sarajevo, handed a rifle and given a spot overlooking the city. The film sent shockwaves across Europe. It directly led the then mayor of Sarajevo, Benjamina Karic, to file a formal criminal complaint. Suddenly, the whispers had a name and the allegations had a spotlight. The film claimed the price for their grotesque tourism was somewhere between 80,000 and 115,000 euros. But the most sickening detail was the alleged price list. 1 fee to shoot a man or woman, but a higher price to shoot a child? The documentary transformed a horrifying legend into a credible criminal case, forcing the world to ask a question it had long ignored. Did this really happen? The Sarajevo Safari documentary was the bombshell that finally triggered legal action. In November of 2022, the prosecutor's office of Bosnia Herzegovina confirmed it had opened a case. The significant move came 3 years later. In 2025, prosecutors in Milan, Italy, opened their own criminal investigation. The legal complaint was filed by an Italian writer, Ezio Gavazni, who had been haunted by the story since the 90s and was pushed to act by the documentary. The Italian authorities are not taking this lightly. The charges being investigated are for voluntary homicide, aggravated by cruelty and abject motives. By early 2026, the Italian investigation had its first official suspect. An 80-year-old former truck driver from northern Italy. Italian media reported he was questioned and he has denied all allegations. Soon after, 2 more suspects were reportedly registered in the probe, and the investigation isn't just in Italy. Reports suggest parallel inquiries are being pursued in France, Switzerland, and Belgium, and in the United States. Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna announced in late 2025 that she had launched an inquiry to determine if Americans were involved in what she called a level of evil our country cannot and will not tolerate. After 30 years of silence, the wheels of justice are finally slowly starting to turn. As the official investigation moved forward, even more disturbing details have started to emerge. Croatian investigative published a book titled Pay and Shoot, based on documents he claims were given to him by a Bosnia intelligence officer who was assassinated in 1996. His book alleges that the paid killers competed to see who could kill the most beautiful women. It also repeats a terrifying claim of a price list, with pregnant women allegedly being the most expensive targets. Of course, with allegations this explosive, there are fierce denials. From the start, officials from Republika and Serbian war veteran groups have called the story heinous lies and propaganda meant to demonize the Serbian people. They argue that the logistics of bringing foreign civilians into active war zones would have been nearly impossible. Some British soldiers who served in Sarajevo have also expressed skepticism, saying they never saw or heard any credible intelligence about tourist snipers. During their time there, they see the story as a powerful but ultimately untrue urban myth born from the trauma of war. So where does that leave us? On one side, we have decades of consistent testimony from survivors, a former U.S. Marine, and even an alleged Serbian contractor. We have a documentary that outlined an operational structure, and most importantly, we have multiple ongoing criminal investigations in several countries, with at least one formal suspect identified. On the other hand, and on the other side, we have angry denials from those accused of helping these killers, and fair questions about how such a scheme could even work in a chaotic war zone. The story of Sniper Alley's paid killers confronts us with the darkest parts of humanity. The idea that someone could have so much money and so little soul that they would pay to kill for sport is almost unbearable thought. For the people of Sarajevo, this isn't a thought experiment. It's a memory they've lived with for over 30 years. The criminal investigations are active, and the full truth is still just out of reach. The case of the Sarajevo Safari is far from solved, but for the first time, it's not being ignored. The final question is the one that truly matters. Will the people who allegedly turned a city suffering into their private hunting ground ever face justice? Or will the complete story of Sniper Alley's darkest secret remain buried with its victims?
Blood on the grass won't wash away. Undetected footprints hidden in the mud.